This is the PCB. Turns out that the pinout here is actually in this configuration, so instead of using a top contact connector, I've used a bottom contact connector, and it means that the display can flip over. I've got a little bit of double-sided tape there. The display can flip over and sit on top of the component side of the board, which is actually what I intended originally. I thought I'd wired the connector up wrong, but it turns out it's correct. So that will be the sort of footprint for the watch, which, well, it's fairly big. That's the smallest Epaper display I could find, at least from Buy Display, and it's sort of similar in size to this mechanical watch that I put together. So I think it'll be okay. It's a heck of a lot lighter. That's quite a heavy thing. I mean, it's probably not going to be much thicker. I don't think it's going to be thicker because all I need is a battery underneath that and it's done. So I think in terms of the thickness, that is actually going to be probably thinner than the watch here, and definitely a lot lighter. So if I let's turn the power on. This is just running off the ST-Link power supply. The display will clear. Now, Epaper displays have this flashing where they wipe out everything, and it seems to be to prevent ghosting. So that seems to be built into the controller. So the black and white does less flashing than the colour display. So I'll probably go with the black and white display because it takes maybe just over a second to update. Second and a half, and then it's done. So that's pretty quick. So obviously the less time that the processor's powered up, the less energy is coming out of the battery. So I think the colour, the red and the yellow displays, I don't think they're going to be a good idea. They're just going to burn battery power for really not a lot of use. The red and the yellow, I couldn't really think of anything really essential that I'd want to use them for. So black and white is going to be the colour. So this is just counting. So every byte in the display buffer is being incremented on every cycle. So the stripes are because every byte is the same, and it's just counting up. So you get more stripes and thicker stripes depending on what the binary value is. It's quite a nice high resolution display that you'll be able to get a lot of information on there. So that's nice. It's much bigger than the sharp memory display I was using, which is good and bad. It means the whole thing is going to be bigger. But it's a very low power display. I mean, it's lower even than the sharp memory LCD, which does need to be powered up all the time. So next step is to get proper drawing code in there. I'll port over the drawing code, which is quite a lot of chopping and changing, I think. And then we will have a way of putting up fonts, characters, lines, anything we want really. The board itself, there were a few problems. I've mucked up the SPI, so hardware SPI not really possible on this layout. I mean, I could rewire the board, but also the firmware seems a bit tricky, and really that's fast enough. This is just using the bit banged SPI, and the whole thing's updated in second, maybe 2 seconds, something like that. So not too bothered by that. I did leave out a connection here, so that wire that's running there, sort of between that capacitor and that capacitor, that was the the main 3.3 volts for the voltage inverters that's needed for the Epaper display. It needs sort of up to 20 volts or something to actually work. Other than that, it was fine. The transmit and ground were shorted over on this sort of smallish pitch connector here. That was just a solder blob, so I removed that. And everything else was okay. So it's modifiable. It's easily fixable on the PCB. Really, I just need to swap over the SPI so that I do have the option to use the hardware, although I don't think I'll bother now looking at this. It doesn't seem any different to the hardware SPI. I can make it faster than this as well by using direct port accesses. This is going through digital write. and putting that track on, that's not a problem. So yeah, so the next thing is to get some decent drawing software in there.